No, 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 no. It has to have a 3, has to have a 3. He called up. He said, sir, $3 billion, I want, and this is what happened, $3,999,999,999 and 99 cents, 1 penny less. I said, you have a deal. But we saved $1.7 billion just by negotiating. And in all fairness, most of you can do that, and some of you do it. Some of you do, you have surplus states, you have incredible states, and you have to do that because every time somebody sends you a bill, they expect to be negotiated. And in the past administration, and sometimes I guess in this it happens because people don't care. Elon talks about caring. Caring is very important, and they have to care. If they care, they say, no, I'll pay you. They'll send you a bill for $10,000, and you say, nope, I'll give you $5,000. And they'll say, no way, no way, no way, and you'll end up paying $6,000 or $7,000 or something. But all you have to do is care a little bit and try and get it down. And literally every contract, I think there's not a contract that's sent in government that I couldn't come and that many of you couldn't cut and cut very substantially. And boy, what a difference it would make for the government. I terminated the Green New Scam, one of the great scams in the history of our country. I canceled Joe Biden's insane electric vehicle mandate, saving our auto industry from destruction. That was an easy one. And all of this helps to combat inflation and bring down costs. We're bringing down costs way down. We're going to bring up jobs like you haven't seen because the company's pouring in. We're going to have announcements over the next 3-4 weeks that you're not going to believe from some of the biggest companies in the world. And the numbers are staggering. Hundreds of billions of dollars of investment, hundreds and hundreds, trillions of dollars when you add it up. To slash hundreds of billions of dollars in waste and fraud. We're talking about also an abuse. I've created, as you possibly have read just a little bit, the Department of Government Efficiency. And here are just some of the things that we've paid. And we've stopped, and we've gotten the money back. $520 million for a consultant to do ESG, that's environmental, social, and governance investments in Africa. $525 million. $25 million to promote biodiversity conservation and social responsibility behavior in Colombia. $40 million to improve the social and economic inclusion of sedentary migrants. Nobody even knows what the hell it means. $42 million for social and behavioral change in Uganda. $10 million for Mozambique medical male circumcision. We're doing circumcisions in Mozambique to the tune of approximately $12 million. $14 million for improving public procurement in Serbia. $486 million to the Consortium for Elections and Political Process Strengthening, including $22 million for inclusive and participatory political process in Moldova, and $21 million for voter turnout in India. Why are we caring about India turnout? We got enough problems. We want our own turnout, don't we? Can you imagine all that money going to India? I wonder what they think when they get it. Now, it's a kickback scheme. It's not like they get it and they spend. They kick it back to the people that send it, I would say, in many cases. Many of these cases, anytime you have no idea what we're talking about, that means there's a kickback because nobody has any idea what's going on there. $29 million to strengthen the political landscape in Bangladesh. Nobody knows what they mean by political landscape. What does that mean? $20 million for fiscal federalism and $19 million for biodiversity in Nepal. $47 million for improving learning outcomes in Asia. What the hell do I care about? We got a lot. We got enough problems. And all of this is terminated. We terminated this stuff, and we're on the track. And by the way, so many others I could read all night long, but so many were so terrible, and some were actually disgusting. And I know you're eating your dinner, so I didn't want to do that. But we're draining the swamp. And, one of them was $100 million for condoms for Hamas. You heard about that. 50 and 50. It's 50 million, and then they decided they needed more condoms, so they sent another 50 million. So it's 100 million condoms for Hamas. But now that's the good stuff. Here's even worse. Social Security. As you know, generally speaking, people don't live to be over 100 years old. We all will, I think, 120, 130, hopefully. But, you hate when you get near that number. It's like, let's hope we can live to length like this. But here's what we're finding and what we found. And these were all found by these computer geniuses. I asked Elon, what trait do these have? You know, they started off with 12 guys, then they had 30 guys, then they had 57 guys. Now they have over 100 guys. And he attracts very young people with high IQs, you know. Some people attract very beautiful people. I think I like them better, actually. But he attracts young people that are brilliant, and they love the country, too. But I said, what trait do they really have? And the trait that they really have was that they're extraordinary with computers. They can take them. He said they make love to their computer. I said, I don't want to hear about that. Doesn't sound too good. He said they can take apart the most complex computer instruments and literally put them back blindfolded. So when they go into some guy that's ripping off the country by doing some of the things you've just heard or what you're going to hear, they can't be bullshitted. You know, they can't say, oh, gee, there was a mistake. There was a big mistake. And we're finding hundreds of billions of dollars worth of fraud, waste and abuse, but I think fraud will be the number one as we see. But listen to this on the program. There are 4.7 million Social Security members who go and live from 100 to 109. Well, I'll tell you, I know some people that are close to 100. I know one or two that got over that mark. But you don't have millions. 3.6 million people from age 110 to age 119. 3.47 million people from age 120 to 129. In other words, 120 to 129 years old. Millions of people, millions. 3.9 million people from age 130 to 139, which is pretty amazing because the longest living person ever on record, and they're not sure it was correct, was a woman from a very faraway place, lived to 127 years old. She was a healthy specimen, but she lived to 127. 3.5 million people from age 140 to 149. So we have 140-year-old people plus millions of them. 1.3 million people live to over 150 years of age, 150 to 159 to be exact. Over 130,000 people over the age of 160 years old, including 1,039 people between the ages of 220 to 229. And we're going to be investigating this fraud. We had one person who was 361 years old. And what we're doing now is we're finding how many of these people were paid. So we have millions of people, could be well over 100 million people in our Social Security rolls. So the good news is when we take them off, whether they were paid or not, it looks like our Social Security could be really solid. It could be a lot better than we thought, if you think about it. And I'm going to do something. I'm actually going on this one. You know, all my life I've heard about Fort Knox. That's where the gold is kept, right? I heard Fort Knox, oh. But, you know, we're getting a little bit shaky. We're getting the yips on this stuff. Like, I want to find out. So we're going to open up the doors. I'm going to see if we have gold there. We want to find out. Did anybody steal the gold in Fort Knox? It's a pretty amazing place. But I'm going to actually go. We're going to open the doors. We're going to inspect Fort Knox. We want to make sure that we actually have 400 tons of gold or whatever the hell it is. It's a lot of gold. I don't want to open it and the cupboards are bare. Could happen. If you look at some of the things, oh, by the way, wait till we go into the education department. We haven't even done that. So we could find as much as $1.5 trillion worth of waste, fraud, and abuse. If we do that, we can balance budgets. We can do a lot of other things, especially when you couple it with the massive amounts of tariffs that are coming in already, just with what we are charging. I won't mention the country because I don't want to anger people that like me, and I like them very much. But we're finding at least $60 billion a year in one country alone, and I haven't even started. It's just a very small portion that I've attached to them. So I got a call from Congress. They said, a lot of money is coming in from these tariffs. And they're starting to change their whole thing. So if you can add the tariffs, and this is numbers that I don't want to say it because then they'll say he didn't produce, but you could wipe out your income tax. You could maybe not even have an income tax system when this thing works out. Because in the old days, that's what happened. You know, our country was the richest ever from 1870 to 1913. That's when we were actually the richest, and we were a full tariff country. McKinley, and I just renamed Mount McKinley, as if I hope you're happy about that. But McKinley was the president. He was a tariff guy, and he believed that countries should not be allowed to come in and plunder. He had beautiful language on tariffs: plunder our wealth, plunder our jobs, steal our companies, and take our money without paying a very fair price. And he said, and that price should be more than fair. It should be high, because what they do is they hurt our country. And we became very rich. He was assassinated. And as you know, Roosevelt took over, Teddy, and he spent money on parks and on dams and on everything. I mean, you know, but he really spent a lot of the money. McKinley never got the credit, but he spent a lot of the money that McKinley made. But it was the richest we ever were in the 1800s, early 1900s. And then in 1913, we went to the income tax system. And to be honest, we did fine, but we were never like we were. They formed the Tariff Commission of 1887. And it was a commission of people like you, blue bloods. Are you blue bloods? There are a couple, and about 3 of them over here. But blue bloods. But it was a commission, and it was set up for the sole purpose of, we have so much money. This is in the United States. We had no debt. We had no nothing. We had massive amounts of money. The commission was set up to determine where we should spend our money. Where do we spend it? We've got so much. Can you imagine? Wouldn't that be nice? Now look at what they're doing, but this is money we have to borrow where they're doing it. But we're going to find out that this money went to people and it got kicked back. You're going to find out a lot of that, but we'll catch it all. We've launched the largest deregulation campaign in our country's history. For every one new regulation, I've directed that 10 old regulations must be eliminated. And I will say, in my first term, we did more deregulation than any president in history by far, not even close. With Republicans in Congress, we're also racing to pass the largest tax cuts in American history. We're looking to we brought it down from 41%, much higher if you add the state things, but 41% to 21%, which people said was impossible. And now I'm trying to bring it down to 15%, so it'll go from 21 to 15, but only if you make your product in the United States of America. Otherwise, you pay 21%. That'd be great to protect American auto workers, who, by the way, they're going to be one of the biggest beneficiaries of what we're doing with tariffs, because they just stopped 2 big auto plants in the middle of construction from being built in Mexico, because they see, when I got elected, they said, oh, this is going to be a problem for us because we have big tariffs going on, and we have tariffs going on autos, and they don't have to pay any tariffs. There is no tariff. All you have to do is build your plant in the United States. They were building plants in Mexico right opposite the border. They're making them in Mexico. They're selling them into the United States with virtually no tax. And they're killing Detroit, all these places are being killed. Now it's the exact opposite. And by the way, Canada was a big participant in that too. And I think Canada, they're going to have to pay tariffs on automobiles, lumber, and oil and gas, et cetera, et cetera. And they get 95% of their product from the United States. I think they have to become the 51st state. And you heard the people booing the national anthem, but I think ultimately they'll be praising the national anthem. We'll have to work out some deal with it, because I do like the "O Canada," right? It's a beautiful thing. I think we're going to have to keep it for the 51st state. I call him Governor Trudeau. I said, Governor Trudeau's doing a wonderful job. I think it's actually cost him his election, if you want to know the truth. But we're gonna see about that. We're looking at Greenland. And we have to take back the Panama Canal, because that wasn't the deal. We gave the Panama Canal to Panama. It was the most expensive thing ever built in our country. It would be the equivalent of $2 trillion today. We spend massive amounts. We lost 38,000 lives from the mosquito and snakes. A lot of bad snake bites, but mostly the mosquitoes, malaria. They killed 38,000 of our people. They paid laborers 5 times what they were getting in the United States to go, knowing that there was a good chance they were going to die. 20% of them died. And Jimmy Carter, may he rest in peace, the late, great Jimmy Carter, gave it away for $1. It's also the most profitable thing ever built. You know, it's what you hear about casinos and you hear about all the stuff. They're peanuts compared to this. It's the most profitable thing ever built. There's never been anything. I mean, you have ships lined up. And by the way, when they gave it away like a bunch of dummies for $1. The day after they took over, they raised the price per ship by 4 times. That wasn't high enough. There was no problem. They raised it again twice, and they're getting almost $1 million a ship, and their product is water. It's Pacific and Atlantic where they meet, and one is about 18 feet higher than the other, which a lot of people don't know. Actually, it's one of the great marvels of the world. Well, we built it, and we're not going to let, because China has essentially taken it over. We're not going to let that happen. China knows it, and so does Panama. To protect American workers and bring billions of dollars into our treasury, we're in the process of imposing reciprocal tariffs on any nation that tries to cheat us or steal our jobs. So India, as an example, has very, very high tariffs. And I was going to impose a flat tariff, but that wouldn't really do the trick because some of the countries have really high tariffs. So it really works out much better. Nobody can even fight it. Whatever they charge us, we charge them. So if they're at 25%, we are at 25. If they're at 75, we're at 7. Whatever they charge us. And it was very interesting. The European Union, we were at 2.5% for cars. European Union was much higher. They just reduced their tariffs on cars to 2.5 to be reciprocal with ours. So that's just an early sign. But I think that's going to happen. And then some will want to fight us a little bit, but it doesn't matter. They're reciprocal. And even the press says, oh, I see. Well, they don't fight us. If I put a flat tariff on like 25, 30%, even if it was lower than we would have gotten, if we put a flat tariff on, the press would have gone crazy. That's terrible. Even if somebody was paying like 5 times more, charging us 5 times more. When you say reciprocal, I said it the other day to the failing New York Times. I said, listen, whatever they charge us, we charge them. They go, well, that sounds fair. It really does, doesn't it? So it's a reciprocal tariff, whatever they charge us. I've ended Joe Biden's weaponization of our government and removed his handpicked radical left Marxist prosecutors from the Department of Justice. We have a great Attorney General, Pam. I immediately halted all government censorship and brought back free speech in America. I signed an executive order to end all of the lawless diversity, equity, and inclusion policies across the entire federal government and private sector. Do you see how much it costs? One company said they're going out of that business and they're going to write off $229 million. How do you spend that much money to convince people that they should have transgender operations and various and sundry other things that we don't like to talk about? It's crazy, the amount of money it was almost like just a mind blower what they were doing. It was terrible and all over. And by the way, our military is now free of that. Anybody that even tries it, they're gone. I signed really historic orders to get critical race theory and transgender ideology out of the schools and out of our military.
All right, Chris Cuomo here. You're watching NewsNation, and we are all watching President Trump go through his list of perceived accomplishments and his rationales for why he is making the right calls. And we're going to address 30 days of the Trump administration. I believe we are in a place that is really led and surrounded by questions. Part of that is because 30 days isn't that long. Part of that is because of how long the 30 days have felt for many people affected by what the president has said and done. But I want to start with a little food for thought based on the international environment, because we lived a shared experience today that is about as bad a thing as humanity has to offer. And it's captured in 6 words. For sale, baby shoes, never worn. Have you ever heard that line? For sale, baby shoes, never worn. I've always been haunted by that line, many years, especially after I came to understand it not as allegory or some example of Hemingway's ability with minimalist storytelling, but as an allowable cost of war that I have seen with my own eyes. We don't show you dead babies. We worry that the image is too scarring. I have long believed that that is a mistake. because I just feel too many of us have lost the lesson. That's supposed to be too much to take. Murdered babies brought home in Israel today. Kafir Bibas, 9 months old. Ariel Bibas, 4 years old. A horror that has the Middle East on the brink of another wave of death. Jews already reeling, and then the ultimate insult to injury, sending back the wrong dead. Is Hamas so indifferent to who they steal and kill that they can't keep the mothers they slaughter straight? Apparently so. Israel says that DNA shows that Hamas sent back a body that is not the mother of those 2 dead babies. Shiri Bibas is not the body delivered, says Israel. In fact, they say the DNA of the body does not belong to any known hostage. So who is this poor woman? And do the terrorists still have Shiri? And then we saw the true reflection of the reality of this moment. The torment of one side is the triumph of the other. In Gaza, a mob celebrating the deaths. Israel posting a video we can't independently verify. I'm not there. But it shows Gazan children celebrating as Hamas paraded dead bodies. I'll tell you what, I really hope I have to correct this tonight, tomorrow, and say, no, it was of another time. Israel mistook it or mislabeled it on purpose. Whatever the story, I would love to be able to correct it. Because if this is the truth, goddamn. It's the first time I've seen a group of happy kids in Gaza since the war started. How damning that it is the death of little ones like them that lifts their spirits. What can that mean for humanity there or anywhere? The clearest sign that there is likely more and worse to come in the Middle East is that too many take sides on which dead babies matter more. Comparing what 2 mean versus 20 or 200 or 2,000. Beaten or bombed. Stolen on October 7th or stuck in Gaza. The comparison itself confuses what matters. There can be no preference for which dead babies have value if you want any to have any value. Either all matter or none will matter. We have to know that by now. And if anything, the fact that you must recognize that as a reality and ignore it, isn't that an admission of wanting more of the same? That's the question for the kafia flyers on campus. And that there are enraged advocates on either side. They seem to miss this. And so the one cost of this conflict that should stir a collective resolve to end this, the reality of so many dead babies, seems to now be a catalyst to kill more kids. Think about how sick that is. Whataboutism as a baptism to a broken moral relativism. False equivalencies and comparisons as a way of showing your entrance, your worth into this world where the only thing that matters is what you want in that moment. When will the college-educated and the doom scrollers get that? Is there any hope for a two-state solution when our own president insists on saying that all Gazans must go?
We'll build beautiful communities, safe communities. Could be 5, 6, could be 2, but we'll build safe communities a little bit away from where they are, where all of this danger is. In the meantime, I would own this. Think of it as a real estate development for the future. It would be a beautiful piece of land.
Would the Palestinians have the right to return?
No, they wouldn't, because they're going to have much better housing, much better. In other words, I'm talking about building a permanent place for them.
Where? This is their home. That's not what Israel said. What better rallying cry can you think of for Hamas than to tell the people, look, you got two choices: stay and fight, or you're never coming back. Those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Santayana. It was denying the right of Palestinians to return to their homeland decades ago that contributed to the animus we're dealing with today. If the next phases of this ceasefire are derailed by the current despair, and it looks like it may well be, I hope not. Boy, I'd love to be wrong. My question is, where will the impetus to end it come from? Our president has arguably lost that leverage, at least for the moment, threatening to come at Gaza with everything. The ring's empty when everything is already in ruins. And now with an administration intent on selling the idea of emptying the place out, the best hope for anything better there lies with the Arab community that has pretty much sat by and watched it all burn until now. When dead babies don't dissuade people from more violence, from wanting more death, is there any hope? I don't know. But it's a very real question. And we must add it to the list of questions that are adding up as we pass 30 days of the second Trump administration. We are confronted with a lot of questions. Some of them are a function of this being new. Is he making things better or worse in the Middle East, for Ukraine, for our government? He just spoke to a bunch of Republican governors, recited a list of savings that is just riddled with errors of type, amount, impact. And I really believe that there are plenty of people around him who know they're not accurate. They know that, there's not this huge group of walking dead getting Social Security, but they let him say it anyway. Sure, you can blame him for saying it, but we all know he's not doing his own research, right? And this is the easy stuff, finding waste, which everybody should want. Certainly I do. But how is what we're seeing now going to inform of us how he'll take on the tough problems? Or will he take on the tough problems? I mean, when are we going to start hearing about the agencies that are the big line budget items? Prices are getting higher. Trump right now is the first president to force an increase in unemployment with plans to cut so many federal workers. Is that being penny wise but pound foolish? Cutting jobs to just cut taxes for the wealthy? These are questions. And the answers could come out in a way that benefit him or more than him or his party or the country. I don't know. But that's where we are 30 days in. Let's discuss the plus minus. Democratic strategist Antoine Seawright, journalist, commentator Scotty Nell Hughes, true conservative, joins us live from CPAC, the mothership. Good to have you both. Scotty, help me understand something first before we get into the policy, okay? You would not let me say things that you had already told me once were untrue. If you heard me say something untrue, you'd call me and say, Chris, I told you that is the answer. It is not 6, it's 8. You just said 6 again. Why aren't the people around Trump telling him that about the prices of potential savings and the Social Security numbers? Why are they letting him run a false narrative that undermines confidence in these programs that we all know people need?
Well, people might need them, Chris, but I think we can all know that there is corruption, there is waste that is happening in these programs. And you're right. I would not let you, I would pester you to say the facts. And if I wouldn't, we all know that your staff would before I even said anything. But we don't know exactly the conversations that's happening in the White House between the administration and Donald Trump. But I think, to your point to what you said, if you know it's wrong, why would you purposely keep repeating it? Which makes me think they don't think they're wrong. And so their numbers, according to them, are correct. So until we have anything to disprove it and have that factuals, you kind of have to go with what the president's saying.
No, we don't. Scotty, we both know that we saw that the numbers they were talking about on Social Security are just wrong. And luckily they are wrong, because otherwise we got a problem, because there's a lot of zombies out there. But I'm just saying, I don't know how it gets us to a better place. That's all I'm saying, Scotty. But let's talk policy. So, Antoine, look, here's the trick. It's easy for me to fact-check Trump, okay? Nobody's been fact-checked more than he has. Nobody has failed more of those fact-checks. He still got elected. What does that tell you? People care more about something else. What is that, and what does it mean for Democrats after these 30 days?
Well, I think what this election taught us that, one, it's easier to vote against something than it is to vote for something. And quite frankly, it's easier to be angry than it is informed. The fact of the matter is Donald Trump has a pattern and a history of not having a relationship with the truth. In my community, we call it lying. In spite of that, in spite of his extreme overreach, in spite of him cutting government to the bone, where America is experiencing bleeding at its core, when you look at agencies that have been cut, the jobs that have been eliminated, and the consequences that will have across the board, it simply means that Democrats have an opportunity and an obligation to step up, hold him accountable, call out his lies, but also offer a reasonable alternative to what
censorship. Censorship. Your light went out, Antoine. Censorship at NewsNation, Scotty. Did you do that? Was he making too good a point for you? So you tried to close him down? Already looked like somebody was holding him hostage against that wall. How do you respond to what he says? He's making salient points.
Well, first of all, Cuomo, I'm not the Biden administration. I don't shut down free speech, is what we saw the past year. But to Antoine's point.
Yeah. Keep going.
Yeah. Okay. To Antoine's point, it's interesting to hear Democrats talk about lying when for the last 4 years we were lied to, saying that the president sitting in the Oval Office was competent and was not suffering any sort of mental incapacitation at times, and yet it was very much apparent to everybody else who were watching their TV. So don't talk to me. Don't preach to the Republicans about lying, Democrats, when you were trying to sell the ultimate lie for the last 4 years. When you talk about, we are trillions of dollars in debt, Chris. What are we supposed to do?
Yes.
Are we supposed to continue to put those trillions of dollars of debt on our children, grandchildren, on great-grandchildren?
No.
Especially if we know this waste is happening in the government. So why don't we hold the government accountable? And that's all that is happening right now.
But Scotty, respectfully, no one has argued that we should assess the budget and weed out waste, fraud, and abuse. No one is disagreeing with that. I think that's bipartisan. Washington Republicans and Democrats agree. But when you fire inspector generals who has that role and responsibility, that means you're very unserious about doing the actual work. We have an unelected billionaire who does not even understand what a democratic republic means and how it operates, and just want to cut in to check a box. I think that's dangerous, because when you cut 1,000 veterans working in that department, when you cut FAA workers, when you cut IRS agents, and the list goes on, you know who that hurts? The people who voted for Trump and the people who did not vote at all, also the people who voted for Kamala Harris for president. So that impacts everyone. America itself functions all because of the government that holds it up.
All right, I gotta go. I got an ambassador I gotta get to, because it's the middle of the night for them. We're gonna continue this conversation. Antoine, thank you for dealing with the technical, as always. Scotty, I appreciate you making the case, although I didn't like what you did to Antoine there with the lighting. But I'm gonna forgive it, because on one level, I respect the treachery. Nobody believes it.
Savage.
Look at the mad face. Scotty, thank you for joining us from CPAC. I know you're busy there. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you very much. 4 minutes, 35 seconds. Coming up. So, what are we supposed to make of people celebrating the return of dead babies? How do you see that in a way that can inspire anything better to come out of this? What does it mean that the mother they were supposed to return wasn't returned, and we don't even know who the woman is that they did return? What does what happened today mean for what happens next? That's the biggest question. We will get an answer from someone who knows right after the break.
I think Adnan will come home. I do believe that. In my heart, I believe that. Right now, under President Trump, it has become extremely clear that there are massive consequences that will happen. And I will tell you, I will personally hunt all of them down if they touch a hair on his head.
Well, I think we're going to learn what that means or doesn't mean. That was Adam Bowler, Trump's special envoy for hostage affairs, on the show last night, talking about the return of the last American hostage being held by Hamas, okay? Idan Alexander, okay? And he is 21. Now, here's the sticky bit. Idan is expected to be released in the next phase of the ceasefire deal. The question is there a next phase? Why? Because of what we saw today. The impact of crowds of Gazans, including kids, cheering Hamas handing over dead babies is so searing, is so painful, that there could be more energy towards continuing this fight than ending it, especially insult to injury at the ultimate extreme. They give back 2 dead babies and their mother, and the body that's the mother is not the mother. In fact, it's not even one of the known hostages, judging by the DNA. So now what? A senior Israeli official was quoted as saying, there will be no second phase. Gaza will be opened up to unprecedented fire. It's one thing for an anonymous source to say it. It's another for someone who can be held to account. Former Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett joins us now. I cannot even start to imagine how you processed what happened today. So let's try to focus on what it means. Do you believe that this was too much pain, especially with the revelations about the mother's body, that this ceasefire may not hold?
That may be the case. Israelis all feel like one big family. And we've been praying for a year and a half for the return of the Bivas family. And they were kidnapped, Shiri and Yarden Bivas, the parents, and the children, Ariel, 4 years old, and Kfir, 7 months old. And Shiri's mom and dad were murdered. And the whole year we hoped, but now we know that the children were murdered by Hamas, in custody of Hamas. We know that by the forensics. The IDF has just announced that. And we're talking about a 7-month-old baby, Kfir. He and Ariel, his brother, loved Batman, and he'd always run around in a costume of Batman. And Shiri loved her children. And the terrorists not only murdered the grandparents and kidnapped the kids, they even shot the dog, Tanto. And today, this crazy, perverted ceremony where Gazans, thousands of Gazans, are cheering and singing songs and celebrating when the coffins of 2 young children, a baby and a young boy, are handed over. We have a big problem, and I'm going to say something that I'm not happy to say. I wish I could say that the Gaza population has been kidnapped by Hamas, but the population, is just clear and good-hearted. The harsh reality, the unpleasant reality, is that the majority of Gazans want to murder all of the Israelis. The majority of the Palestinians want to annihilate and murder myself, my 4 children, all the children of Israel. Now we know it as a fact. And this is something that in Israel, we're going to have to face this reality.
Naftali, you said something that I just want to get some clarification on. There is a dispute about how the babies died. There can be no dispute that the responsibility for their death is on the people who stole them. That's easy. That's easy morally. That's easy legally. But you say that forensics show that they killed the babies. They say, as you know, it was the bombs, the airstrikes that killed the babies. You say no.
I'm relying on the official announcement from 2 or 3 hours ago of the IDF. I've not seen the forensics myself, but the IDF has officially announced, and I quote, that they were cruelly murdered by Hamas. I'm talking about the baby, Kfir, and Ariel. I assume that over the next few days we'll get more clarification. What does that mean?
Well, I'll tell you, what it means forensically is one thing. What it means to the Israeli population is a frightening thought. I mean, there's nothing worse than dead babies, let alone if the killing is intentional. Naftali, this is such a horrible time, and there's nothing I can say other than to pledge that we will see it through, and we will be fair, and we will be there when required by the turn of events on the ground, which I think may be coming soon. Thank you for spending time with me in the middle of the night, especially on a day that I'm sure you can't wait to forget. Not that you'll ever be able to. Thank you for being with me.
We in Israel want to say thank you and have deep gratitude to the American people who know how to see the difference between good and evil. We're strong. We're resilient. We're going to defeat Hamas, and we're going to bring back the hostages. Thank you very much.
All right. I just hope that there is this next phase. You heard Adam Bowler. Now, I understand why you say there are questions about what happens next. We'll watch it together. Be well.
Thank you.
All right. Now, of course, he can't answer. Well, what happens if they don't give the American back? You saw Adam Bowler, very strong. He's not the president, though. So let's bring in someone who's seen all sides of this, although I got to tell you, intentionally killing babies, if that's true, if they can prove that scientifically to the satisfaction of those watching, that's a new fold in this. Former State Department Mideast peace negotiator for Republicans and Democrats, ADM Aaron David Miller, mentor of mine. Heavy conversation, brother. I mean, you know what it is like when the Israelis feel that it is basically a blood oath that they have to follow. If it turns out that they start putting out the story that these kids were killed at the hand of Hamas, what do you think that means for the next phase of the ceasefire?
You know, I don't know what the polls. First of all, it's a tragic and very sad day. Israelis have a code. The code has always been the redemption of both the living and the dead. And the reality is that is the decision, that is the crossroads that the current Israeli government faces. It's a crossroads that this administration is going to face because you cannot do both. You cannot free the hostages that remain, we'll get to that in a minute, and destroy Hamas as an organization. Phase one is going to be completed. They'll release 6 live Israelis on Saturday. I hope that this psychological torture that Hamas is practicing by not returning Sherry Beavis' body is extraordinary, just extraordinary. What did they think? That Israeli forensics could now tell the difference between children who were killed by an Israeli airstrike and or bullets and knife wounds? I mean, I think that I do not understand, but it's Hamas, Chris. By statute, by law, the United States considers it rightly as a terrorist organization. But the question still remains. Phase one goes through 33, eight dead Israelis, and the remainder live ones. That leaves, according to Israel's own figures, 59 hostages, living and dead. Israelis estimate that half of them are no longer alive. The question then becomes, do you move to phase two? Phase two obligates Hamas to return all the hostages and end the war. It obligates the current government of Israel to withdraw all of its forces from Gaza and agree to a permanent cessation of hostilities. Right now, Chris, I don't think neither Hamas nor the current government of Israel is willing and or able to make that deal. Public opinion in Israel, every single poll suggests that the highest priority for the people of Israel is the redemption of the living. And I can understand the need to avenge the dead, given what happened on October 7th. You watched that video. I know. Yeah. We talked about it. I couldn't bring myself to watch it. But the redemption of the living, Chris, is what the vast majority of Israelis want. So it's a terrible dilemma. And right now, I would say to you that the current Israeli government probably will prioritize the destruction of Hamas as a military organization. They want the exile of its senior leadership from Gaza.
Well, they have the ultimate impetus. They have the ultimate impetus now, though. If they can put out compelling evidence that these people slaughtered 2 babies, the polls will reflect what they want them to reflect. The question is, where does it get us? We'll watch it together, and you'll help me understand it. ADM, thank you very much. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Chris.
All right, brother. 4 minutes and 15 seconds. World-renowned astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson says, well, he doesn't say this, but here's how I took it. Listen, don't worry about what's happening all over the world. We're all going to die anyway. A huge mansion-sized asteroid is going to hit the Earth in less than a decade. Is this true? Why does he believe this, and how bad would this be? Because I got to tell you, the graphic makes me feel like canceling my life insurance application. Next. Calling him a friend of mine and a mentor. I'm very lucky to have him. So he starts warning that there is a mansion-sized asteroid. Okay, it's like 180 feet in diameter. Okay, 55 meters. Headed towards Earth, could be here by 2032. What are the chances? Somewhere between a 1% chance and a 3% chance over the last week. Okay? So I wanted him to bring him in here because I got to believe if this was really, really bad, he and I would be making plans to do a lot between now and then, and I haven't heard from him. So I'm hoping that there's hope. Neil deGrasse Tyson joins us now. It is always great to see you, brother. Thank you for being with me. What do we need to know here before I cancel my life insurance and forget about that hair restoration treatment I was going to do with you in Turkey?
So a couple of things. This asteroid, 2024 YR4, I think I got its phone number right there. It is notable because it had the highest risk ever reported for an object of any significant size. And a few days ago, that risk was a 3%. It reached as high as a 3% chance of hitting Earth. And this has to do with how accurate do we know the orbital parameters. It only just was discovered a couple of months ago, at the end of 2024. So we have a very small segment of its orbit in which to extrapolate 8 years forward. That comes with a lot of uncertainty. So every day that accumulates, we get to tighten that, get to reduce the understanding. It'll either eventually go to 100% chance of hitting or 0. All right, that's how that works. Turns out last night that the latest estimate was downgraded from what was above 3% now to 1/3 of 1%. So don't worry about it. But what I will say is, why don't we use this as an excuse to maybe prep something for the future? I don't want to be the laughingstock of the galaxy, being the only species that had a space program that went extinct from an asteroid when we could have deflected the asteroid. Because you know that if the dinosaurs had a space program, they'd still be here today.
Yes, I've often said that. Do you think that our ability to knock this thing out or deflect it is like an Elon away, or what do you think?
Is that a new measure?
You can use that, by the way. Yeah, you can have that.
Well, NASA has already experimented with the deflection of an asteroid orbit in a mission not too long ago called DART, the Double Asteroid Redirect Test. There was an orbiting pair of asteroids. They went to one to try to deflect it to see if they can influence its orbital period. A nice contained science experiment. And in fact, they succeeded. And so we need more of those experiments so that this won't happen, ever. And by the way, if you get an asteroid early enough in its multiple orbits, it doesn't take much of a shift to completely push it out of harm's way. That's what we need in the future. This is nature's shot across our bow.
So you have an amazing ability to Neil, to make me interested in hearing something that I absolutely don't want to hear. By the way, I want you to know that. That is a rare gift. And not just science, but science that could kill me. It's always good for you to get me interested in it. Thank you very much for explaining. I look forward to you coming back on and explaining how we've launched an initiative that helps with these types of risks, and that we've learned something that give us a much better understanding of our relative safety to this present circumstance. Thank you very much for being with me.
To that day, yes, indeed.
Me too. I just love seeing you any day I get to. Take care, my friend.
All right.
Boy, I got to tell you something. You know, there was a time when stories like that were like this great barometer for perspective, you know? The whole idea of memento mori from the Stoics, you know, remember you could die, live every day like it could be your last. I mean, that's putting a lot of pressure on yourself. But I got to tell you, the older I get and the more I see things, and the more the energy seems to be the way it is in our society, I don't know that there's anything that is negative enough